Hello again, Struck Diablo Force open beta tester almost upon us, and I'm making some pre-launch theory-crafted semi-builds that should be good for fresh-into-endgame characters when the game actually launches. Not really that great for the beta. I'll explain in a moment why. I also plan to evolve those setups into fully fledged builds when the game is fully released, and then keep them updated as we get patches, seasons, rebalance, and so on. This is one such build for the Necromancer class called Mr. Bones. And as the name suggests, it's focusing on bone skills, bone damage skills. And there are two ways to play it, one with a golem, one without a golem. I personally prefer the version without a golem, which means not just without a golem, without any summons, sacrificing all 3 minions. The beta test will only let us reach level 25 and only let us play in the first act zone, which is fractured peaks. So those builds will definitely not be that useful for the beta, but you could still use those builds to a certain degree to see some synergies between the basic core, macabre, and so on skills that could go well together. This is more about characters around level 50 plus, 60 plus. This specific build uses 64 points or 67. And there were rumors that you only have 63 points in the beta. But we'll see how it will be when the game actually launches, whether they were just limiting for the end game beta the skill points you can get from Renown or not. So there are things included in the setup that if we have more skill points, you could spend points onto, or you could just mess around and change some things. I've made spreadsheets for those builds. You can use the links in the description below the video to access the spreadsheet that you see on your screen, as well as another spreadsheet. And you can also access the shortened text version of the build if you don't want to watch the whole video and just want to read it. So I hope you enjoyed this. Buckle up and let's go. The first thing I like to begin with is the skills themselves. As you can see, 64 skill points as I mentioned. This is the version with those yellow, I've added notes here. The yellow points means points that you take if you don't get a golem. The green is things that you invest into if you take a golem. The way I did it when I took a golem is 1 point here, 3 here, 3 here. Oh no, actually it was 1 point here, 3 here, and 3 here. That was 7 points. Obviously we removed those 7 points. And now we have those 3 points here and 3 points here, which is 6 points. So you would either have 65 points or you would have 64 points. Those are the versions, 65 or 64. But if it's 63, you would have to maybe downgrade this one or downgrade that one or downgrade something else, up to you. And there are things you can downgrade if 63 really is the limit. But 63 seems like a very weird number to be the limit. So my guess is they were just messing around in the beta, limiting how much we can get from Renown. Now, Bone Splinters, Bone Spear, Bone Prison, Iron Maiden, Bone Spirit, Bone Storm, and Ossified Essence. Normally I start from the top, but I want to start from the bottom. So let's go from the specialization and ultimate that I was building around. Sure, this one gives us bonuses around the golem. Let's ignore that. So Ossified Essence. Bone skills deal X multiplicative increased damage for each point of essence you have above 50% upon cast. Not sure how much essence you will have as a maximum, but we've added bonuses to maximum essence, and I would suggest from items taking as much maximum essence as possible, because this is your lifeline. This is what this build relies upon. Essence generation and essence capacity. The more your essence, the more that bonus will be. Now let's look at Bone Storm. A storm of bones surrounds you and the golem. Let's forget about the golem, it's just about us, unless you go for the golem version. Your damage reduction is increased by 15% while Bone Storm is active. While Bone Storm is active, you consume nearby corpses. This is extremely important to mention early. Then you would know why I've I've taken some passives. So you consume nearby corpses. Each corpse consumed adds 2 seconds to bone storm duration up to 10 seconds. This is the only thing that consumes corpses in this build. We don't have any summons that use corpses. So this is why we need corpses in the build. Otherwise, you would be wondering why the hell did he get stuff that has to do with corpses if he's not consuming them. Well, this is what consumes them. Now, standalone is great for not having minions. So if we can get more than 63, 64 points, max this one out, because this will give you damage reduction. And since we have 0 minions, it is not fucked up. If you have a minion, for each minion this gets reduced, this bonus. So if it's 6% for a single point, and 3 points gives you 18, if you have a bunch of minions, 2% for each active minion would reduce it, but I'm not sure whether that's 6% at 2 points, 6% at 3 points, or 6% per point. But I've put 1 point so that I can unlock this, and this one I've maxed out. Sacrificing both skeletal warriors and skeletal mages increases their sacrifice bonus. Sacrifice bonuses, we are getting this one. Skeletal skirmisher sacrifice for crit strike chance increase by 5%. And again, this is boosted by 20%, and then from another item you see later in the legendary powers by X more percent. We're also sacrificing the mages, and you see which mages we're sacrificing. We're sacrificing shadow mages. Oops, just a moment. We're sacrificing shadow mages, which I think is a good thing to do, because your maximum essence is increased. And again, the more maximum essence you have, the more essence you have above 50% and so on, the better. So a lifeline for the build, good synergy. If you don't like this, if you think, okay, I've got enough maximum essence, then this is good. But there is a certain thing that gives you damage for each point above X%. So I think maximum essence is the best top choice for mage sacrifices. But this one is second best maybe. For golems, I prefer this crit damage sacrifice. But if you want a golem, go bone golem, and ideally maybe golem 2 to make it more tanky, with more life and a little bit of extra damage from the extra thorns, although this build is not stacking up thorns. This one is the one I would do. Although this one also is a good synergy, so either way is good, but I think this one is better if you go golem. But again, my choice is sacrificing the iron golem. Next, what have I invested into? Well, if you go golem, I also mentioned that this is 3 points, 3 points, 1 point. Needless to say, extra life for the golem. The golem not being able to lose more than X% life. I'm not sure if 50% is at 3 points or at 1 point. If it's 1 point, then it's perfect. Now, moving on to ultimate, to summoning skills. Bone Spirit consumes all our essence. Upon reaching an enemy, the spirit that we summon deals damage by exploding, and it hits the target and nearby enemies. Damage is increased by 3% for each point of essence spent casting Bone Spirit. So the more your maximum essence, the stronger this is. And again, sockets, gems, passives, wherever you can get maximum essence, get it. This will be super strong with maximum essence. This build relies a lot on crit strike, crit chance, as you can see already. So this one, if it critically strikes, the cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds, which means half of the cooldown. And that's if you don't have any other sources of cooldown reduction. But this one can happen only once per cast, obviously. Now, Bone Spirit has additional 10% crit chance. I think we have plenty of crit chance from other places. And probably from gear we can get some. That's why I put points into Dreadful Bone Spirit. After Bone Spirit hits an enemy, you generate 30 essence over the next 4 seconds. So we want to keep that essence up to get that extra damage. It would be better to have more essence so we can spam more than to give it crit chance, but to use it less often, in my opinion. Because I do think maybe crit chance will be something we can find from other places. Duration, your bone skills have 0.5% increased crit strike chance for 10 essence you have upon cast. So you get a crit chance for every 10 essence, 0.5. So for every 20 essence, you get 1% crit chance upon cast. Again, the more essence, the better. You're seeing now why I was taking certain things. Every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldown of your bone skills by 0.5 seconds, and that's on top of this 6-second decrease. So you make this cooldown if you crit to 6 seconds, and then you can keep reducing it by spending other skills, and it's such a good synergy. But I didn't invest into this. But it's something to keep in mind if you have more skill points, if the limit is around 70 or so, or 75. Compound fracture. After critically striking 10 times with bone skills, your bone skills deal multiplicative increased damage for 5 seconds. Not sure if it's 6 per point, 6 for 3 points, or 6 for 2 points, but I think this is nice. Evotion. Your bone skills deal a multiplicative increased crit strike damage to vulnerable enemies. That means we're introducing vulnerable into the mix as a necessity to benefit from it, and we do have sources for vulnerable. Now, Iron Maiden. Curse the target area. Afflicted enemies take increased damage each time they deal direct damage. Not increase, they take X damage each time they deal direct damage. Was for 10 seconds. Iron Maiden longer cost essence. This is what we've done. Instead, gain 5 essence for each enemy cursed. Of course, it doesn't work on enemies already cursed with Iron Maiden, but keep spamming it when you can if there's new enemies joining the fight. This will keep your essence up and help a lot with the build. Now, we have Abhorrent Iron Maiden to heal us when an enemy dies while afflicted with Iron Maiden, so make sure to keep that Iron Maiden on them. Alternatively, this one is not bad, but I'd rather take the healing. Now, amplified damage. This is something you might wanna not put points into if you decide to go golem, because if you need points for the golem, maybe sacrificing a little bit of DPS to cursed enemies would work well. But I think it's good to max it out, especially if it's 3% per point for a 9% total extra damage to cursed enemies. Good alternatives are those. Each of those are nice, especially this one um, since you don't have anything to taunt for you if you don't take the golem. But this one is my preferred choice of the three. Obviously, you can take points from other places and put them around here. We do have bone armor, so we do have that bone storm and so on. Next is bone prison. Bone prison, prison of bones with X life that surrounds the target area for 6 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. You gain 3 essence each time an enemy hits your bone prison. So you want to make sure the enemies are actually hitting this. Enemies inside of bone prison are vulnerable. So if you walk them inside the bone prison, you keep them vulnerable, and you make them try to break it to exit it. So they would keep hitting it. So you have to be very good with using this to make sure you're grouping up the enemies in a bunch, and then boom, surround them with the bone prison so they could start hitting it, so they could become vulnerable. So that we can get that extra vulnerable synergy that we saw earlier. Now, there is the option to fortify for each enemy trapped, but again, it will require the same playstyle. Consuming a corpse generates 3 essence, and this is the synergy. So this consumes corpses, this generates essence for each consumed corpse, which is 3 essence per corpse. And fueled by death, you deal multiplicative increased damage for 4 seconds after consuming a corpse. This doesn't seem to stack, but if it's 4% per point for a 12 total, it's a good bonus. Now, when a corpse is formed from your skills or minions, fortify. This is an option. If you think you need survivability and you want to stack more fortify, this is great, especially if you pick this and you want to stack this with that. That's an option, but I didn't have spare points for it. Reconstitution, your damage has up to X% chance to create a corpse at the target location. So if this is not enough, to create where was it? Um, if you think you're not creating enough corpses, then this would work nicely, and this increases the damage by having extra essence and being able to spam more and being able to get this damage after consuming corpses. So in general, reconstitution, I wouldn't take it if I'm going for the golem. I think I can be fine sacrificing this. But if I don't take the golem and sacrifice it, I think this is a good investment for the spare points. Maximum essence, hopefully it's three for a point or maybe more. But even if it's 3 for 3 points, it's still better than nothing. Although 3 points might not be worth 3 skill points for 3 maximum essence. So hopefully you get 9 maximum essence when maxing out on living energy. This is also something to keep considering, but I'm not sure if it's worth it, because we don't want all the skills to consume more essence. We want Bone Spirit to be the one consuming a lot of essence. And we want this one so that we can spam more skills quickly with that essence. Now, Bone Spear is great because it pierces through enemies. So if you group them up together, there's high chances, even if they're not in a perfect straight line, for them to still hit if you align it properly. It breaks into shards when it's destroyed, dealing damage each. So this is pretty good to have those shards. And now we have increased crit strike chance and increased crit damage for Bone Spear. If you feel like you have plenty of crit chance and crit damage, you can make the first enemy vulnerable. But it's only the first one, so I don't think it's worth it unless we're doing a boss fight and it's barely any ads and just the boss enters. But you can maybe work around some mini respects by point before boss fight, switching to this from that. Although I would still prefer this one. Bone Splinters, fast 3 Bone Splinters deals damage each. Each subsequent enemy is hit by the same cast Bone Splinters, you get more essence additional. And then Bone Splinters has 3% chance to fire 2 additional projectiles if cast while you have 50 or more essence. Not 50% or more, 50 or more. This is again another synergy of needing more maximum essence. Now, Bone Splinters has 20% chance to make enemies vulnerable. This is our main source of making enemies vulnerable. I prefer this over that one. And let's move on now to the legendary powers. The skill segment ended up longer, so I'll try to make it very short for this one. What are legendary powers? You kill monsters, you wood chests or find wood from other places, and there's a chance to get a legendary. And a legendary item will have a legendary power called Aspect, which is like a special affix you can take from one item, put it on another, as long as that item is in the same category. 5 categories: defensive, offensive, mobility, utility, and resource. So certain item slots belong in certain categories. For example, pants belong only in the defensive, so you can only put defensive stuff in that. You can see that here color coded. I've shortlisted a bunch of aspects here for the Necromancer only and for the Universal that could work well with the build. I've put which one I think is a must-have. I've put some other options for you to add as fewer temporary items and so on. I've added a lot of notes, and this is the best in SWAT. For the helmet aspect of Potent Butt, why Potent Butt and not Umbro? Because this one doesn't have much crowd control, this setup. That's why I think Potent Butt, but even Potent Butt might not be worth it, because are we gonna get enough Blood Orbs? But those are the only 2 options for resource we have right now, based on the information I have, unless there's others that people didn't put on the internet. So you might, if you're noticing this is not proccing enough, remove it and put maybe another utility or another defensive here, or just swap things around. You can move things around. Now, you can get legendary aspects by finishing dungeons. Each aspect can drop if you finish a specific dungeon in a specific zone. You finish it, it doesn't drop as a drop, but it goes into a user interface called Codex of Power, which is a collection of aspects that you have unlocked by finding them. or by beating the final boss of a certain dungeon. And then you can go to an NPC and replace the aspect of one item to another, but instead of using another item for the source, you use the Codex. And that's how it goes. But the Codex of power items, you have the bare minimum. So here this one starts from 5 and it goes to X. You always get the 5 if it's a Codex version. Now, let's go for Might. Why did I go Might? Well, it seems to be the best option for defensive. Basic skills grant damage reduction, so guaranteed damage reduction 25% with the basic skill, which is Bone Splinters. Ghost Walker seems to be better than Wind Striker, and that's our two options for mobility. This one lets you move freely through enemies while below 40% life. This one gives you movement speed. If you crit, if you keep critting, you keep extending the duration. I think this is more useful to a build like this, especially since we don't have if we don't have a golem, if you don't pick the golem like I didn't. Now, sacrificial and torment aspect are the two utilities I took. Sacrificial is your sacrifice bonuses are increased, which stacks with the passive that gives us the skeleton and the skeletal warrior and mage bonuses. So this is 20%. And then from sacrificial aspect, we get X% more. And since I've put it on the amulet, that's 50% more on the X%. So if this gives us 10%, it will be 15, stacking with the other 20 in an additive manner, it seems. Now, the other one I took is this. Critical strikes with bone skills. Any bone skills increase your essence regeneration, pardon me, with multiplicative X% for 4 seconds. This one I've put here, and I think it's a great thing for that build. Now moving on to offensive. There's two must-haves in my opinion. When a segment of Bone Prison is destroyed or expired, it deals damage in an area around itself. So if there's some stragglers left over in there, they will take some extra damage. And we've put this one, Bursting Bones, on a ring, meaning it's not benefiting from bonuses from a two-handed weapon per se if you were to use one. Swelling Curse. Aspect of Swelling Curse. Bone Spirit deals increased damage based on distance traveled. So you need to try to keep your distance to play this build properly. Another thing that we've put is, as you're gonna see, Edge Master Aspect. Skills deal up to X multiplicative increased damage based on available resource when cast. Again, synergy with the build. Great synergy with the build. This one I put on the one-handed or two-handed weapon. So if you use two-handed instead of one-hand and off-hand, you will get this bonus doubled because two-handed weapon is 100%, but you're sacrificing the expectant. Which brings us to the expectant, which is enemies hit with basic skills increase the damage of your next core skills. An expectant synergizes very well with rapid, because your basic skills are faster, which means you will be building up this bonus faster. And if you go two-handed and you don't have expectant, you might consider removing rapid or maybe putting expectant there or maybe putting something else. If you think you can get a lot of stun, there is those two things, consider them. But those two things will work great if you take Torturous Aspect. Enemies afflicted by your Iron Maiden have chance to be stunned. This one also gives you a little bit of chance to stun. Now, if you go Torturous, you take those two, but if you take those two, you might as well take Shared Misery. And if you take that, you might as well take Umbro instead of the other one. Now, I hope everything is clear. Again, I've put notes where necessary, but yeah, hopefully this is a solid setup. I think it's a very fun Necro setup. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end. Struck up, keep it cool until next time, and goodbye.